Welcome to the Spend Advantage podcast by Verisource. Spend Advantage is the competitive advantage for your spend across 100 plus vendor categories. This podcast is all about interviewing amazing people, company, and solutions that will help you 10x your top line growth as well as bottom line savings for your business. Hello, everyone. This is Victor with Verisource. Welcome to another episode of the Spend Advantage podcast. Today, we have a savings partner that I'm very excited to talk to. She's a great friend, and Genia Fresconi, who is the VP of Strategic Partnership with Verisafe. Verisafe helps companies lower credit card processing fees without changing processors. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on your show, Victor. I've been looking forward to this.
I know we've been talking about it, for a while. And again, the Spend Advantage podcast is all about educating the market, companies, CEOs, CFOs, CTOs on, different ways to drive savings for their business. So, but yeah, if you don't mind, maybe, give a little bit of kind of the company story, the background would be great.
Absolutely. Well, Verisave years ago began as an accounts payable auditor. And it was during that time where we noticed a recurring issue, and that was overcharges within the merchant processing line item. And clients were coming to us frustrated by the lost revenue that was happening when they were receiving electronic payments. And they struggled to reconcile those changes accurately each month. And it was really that discovery that led us to pivot and focus exclusively on optimizing merchant fees. And we've been refining our approach ever since.
And yeah, so obviously, every time I talk to you, I learn something, and that's why I love just calling you and picking your brain in this category. But for a lot of the audience out there that may not be truly familiar with credit card processing fees and processors and how it all kind of works and where how that impacts company, can you kind of just give a bit kind of a explanation around that?
Absolutely. And Victor, I have to say, you always ask really great questions. I love our conversations as well. You are educated and naturally have really gotten to know your clientele. So I know that when you're coming to me with those good questions, it's all due to the diligence that you're doing on your side. So thank you for that. But really, credit card processing fees are a part of a very vast financial ecosystem. And those fees cover the cost of moving money from the issuing bank, which is the client's bank, to the acquiring bank, the merchant or the business's bank. And so when a merchant pays their processor, that fee is inclusive of several different components. So naturally, the processor itself, and we'll call them the vehicle for the transaction. But then there's also a point of sale system or maybe some sort of technology that's used to accept those payments. And then there's the card brands, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, those names. They're getting a cut of that. And then also, finally, interchange, which is the fee that goes to the cardholder's bank. And really for businesses, these fees, they directly impact profitability. But then the system's complexity often makes it difficult to really pinpoint where those costs can be reduced.
And, so obviously kind of based on what you just mentioned, can you kind of maybe focus on the next, focus a little bit more on why and where are companies usually getting, maybe overcharged or mischarged? And because you talk about financial system are so complex, right? So where are these kind of little charges happening that they may not usually see, even when they look at maybe their statements and things like that?
Absolutely. Another great question. So we see that most of the overcharging occurs within the interchange fees. And those are really the most complex and also the least transparent part of the merchant account. And those errors can arise from several different areas, such as how the account is set up. Maybe it's how those transactions are processed, how that card is being captured and how, or just the tech stack, the specific technology that they're using. Those are just a couple of reasons why their errors occur. But each merchant is really unique. So uncovering these issues really does require a forensic level analysis. And at Verisave, we do these deep dives and we're looking at those details, but also uncovering errors that most businesses really couldn't detect on their own.
Yeah, and you guys, more than that, I'm going to come back to that to talk a little further. But you guys have one of the best, I would say, savings models, which is savings without making changes. As you know, customers change management is always difficult. So how can you kind of describe how do companies, save but without having to change processors?
You're absolutely right. I think a lot of times when we approach a prospective client, they automatically think that we are a payment processor, and we're not. We are agnostic to payment processors, but really our savings model is simple but also powerful because we can help businesses save money without requiring them to switch processors, and we do that in a number of ways. First, we always start with a no cost, a very unbiased analysis of their account. And then because of most of those savings found within interchange, we can really collaborate with their existing processor to correct those errors. And then that really ensures the minimal disruption to business operations. So I guess kind of something to drive home is that we're not a processor, but we're also not a processor negotiator. Most of those savings that we find don't exist within the fees that the processor themselves charges. It's really, again, within interchange. So we're actually going to partner with your processor. And we're compensated on a gain share basis, meaning that we're only getting paid a percentage of the savings that we deliver. So if a merchant doesn't save, they don't pay. And it's really as simple as that.
Yeah, I love that model. Obviously at Verisource, we have similar model because I feel like incentives drives behaviors, and ultimately, we're dealing with humans, right? Other humans, and people work on behaviors. And so I think our savings model, together, it's aligned with the customer. Only if they're successful, only if they are getting value, do we get paid. So yeah, love that piece. Again, a lot of the audience may or may not be, familiar. I mean, obviously, credit card processing, you kind of described it, and then processors, you kind of described that. Can you maybe give two or three examples of kind of the type and area of and range of savings, and also potential ROI that companies can expect?
Absolutely. Before I do, I wanted to compliment you too. I do agree that there's a really nice marriage between our organizations because we are incentivized to find savings, right? So it's kind of a win-win there. So you know that you've got Verisource and Verisave working together to help reduce those costs, and we're not paid if we don't find them for you. So that's one good reason why we all work really well together. But I would say that most Verisave clients see between like a 10 to 30% reduction in their merchant costs. And for businesses in the B2B space, those savings tend to be even higher. And that's really due to the types of cards that they process. But that said, we also work very well with B2C and hybrid companies, and we can deliver significant savings across the board.
So kind of walk through that a little bit. Is there certain industries, again, when I think about credit card, processing, maybe it's more retail type of clients. What if there are SaaS companies, or can you kind of maybe talk about certain industries that maybe you guys do best with?
Absolutely. There is such a wide variety, but we've worked with media companies, think like subscription-based organizations, um, whether it be kind of a high transaction amount or higher volume. I mean, really, I guess there really is no best industry for us, but we work with manufacturing, for example. I don't think a lot of businesses would think that manufacturing would be a great source of revenue, but they are because I think there are some complexities, and they oftentimes don't have the sophistication in their back office to support, dedicating the time to just this one particular line item. But we can really service like all industries. I don't know that there's any one in particular that doesn't work.
That's no, that is amazing to know. And again, like you said, I wouldn't think of manufacturing being a, kind of a big credit card processing type, but no, that's good to know. So obviously, people usually when they think about ROI, is also time to value, right? So when you think about your program, how long does it usually take for a company to be able to maybe get a saving estimate to know how much potential savings? And then let's say they're interested, how long does it usually take to then achieve those savings? Are we talking about days? Are we talking about weeks or months? Or what do you think?
Yeah, it's business dependent, but I would say the analysis takes really no more than 3 to 4 business days. Within that time frame, we can within just we would need like 2 to 3 months worth of your merchant statements, and within that 3 to 4 day time frame can turn around an analysis, and that analysis will provide you here's our extrapolated annual savings. Based on those 2 to 3 months that you sent us, this is what we anticipate you have to save within a year's time frame. And then from there, the merchant has the opportunity to decide whether they want to move forward. And if they do, I think that their participation has a lot to do with how quickly we can move, because I think we can implement those savings really within a couple of weeks. But naturally, we may need some involvement from that merchant to partner with us and to hand us off to their processor so that we can be efficient, and the merchant can be as involved as they'd like to be. And if they don't want to be involved at all, that's even better. Let us take that for them. But the more engagement we have from the merchant and the processor, naturally, the faster we'll get things done. But I would say on average, our implementation takes about 4 weeks.
Okay, that's no, that's a very fast time to value. One question a lot of customer always ask me when looking at these any category is how much work do I have to do? They're very busy. They got to run businesses and departments and so is there a lot of involvement or work that's needed to be done from a customer perspective, or is it really you guys kind of what I call savings as a service, meaning you really, take on engaging with the merchants and taking care of kind of the saving process, or how much does the customer themselves have to be involved?
Did you say savings as a service?
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like that. We're not using that at Verisave, but we may start. That's really cool. And that's exactly what it is. This is really more of a service. Um, we're in the service business, and we do have some technology naturally that helps us get these things done more efficiently. But I, like the merchant really will need to be involved in those first couple meetings. But once the handoff happens to the processor, typically they can be hands off. It really requires maybe just a checks and balances type of process monthly to ensure that we're capturing those savings. And if we needed any involvement, if we're getting any pushback from any of the third parties and we need the merchants maybe approval, or we need them to give us some authority, then that's really the most of what we would need from the merchant themselves.
Okay. So as we, finish up with last couple questions there, I mean here, I always like to kind of understand. I'm always curious and wanting to learn, especially for the CFOs that we work with. When I think about things like telecom or a lot of these vendors, their invoices are hundreds of pages long, hundreds of line items, and they do it on purpose to make it very complicated and hard to read and understand and decipher, especially when customer are doing 100 things and they don't have the time, right? So I want to kind of talk about how these vendors in the ecosystem are able to kind of overcharge. So why are the merchant accounts able to kind of take advantage of customers without them noticing or understanding, you think?
Well, I think the biggest reason is the complexity, but also that lack of transparency in how those fees are presented. So, for example, some processors even use a proprietary coding on their statements, and that's something that you'd really have to be like an insider to decipher. So while we'd like to believe that this really isn't done intentionally to confuse clients, the reality is that it's not the processor's job to optimize your fees. It's their job to process the transactions. So that's why businesses really need an advocate like Verisave to ensure that they're not leaving that money on the table.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously throughout the whole conversation today, we talk about kind of ROI for the business, kind of the value. But how does this cost the company when they're not using a savings program like Verisave? Obviously then they're overspending. Is there other impacts, or cost to the company that you've seen with customers?
Well, I think for most businesses, they're kind of like hidden costs, and they can add up to thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars annually. But the good news is, with the right analysis and expertise, much of that can be reclaimed, and that kind of turns what feels like a sunk cost into meaningful savings. But I think that this ideology can be applied, as you had mentioned. I think telecom, and there's um, other parts of the business that are complex and confusing. I often think about my own cell phone bill and cable bill when it comes in, and there's all these taxes and fees, and you just pay it every month. And the reality is there may be opportunity to save, but I wouldn't have the expertise or knowledge to dive into that. So that's why working with a company, especially if there's no additional out of pocket cost to use that company, just to at least get a third party, no skin in the game expertise to put eyes on it and let you know one way or another. And maybe the results are good after the initial analysis. Hey, we've compared this against benchmark data. We've compared this against other organizations that are similar in size and industry. And your rates are good. And that's always just a kind of peace of mind, I think, that you can gain from just the initial analysis. Again, that doesn't cost anything. And then if there are savings to be had, then that conversation can evolve and determine if there's a mutually beneficial opportunity to partner and help capture those savings.
Yeah, I have an interesting last question for you. So, obviously, every company has a finance team, and I think we talked a lot about, obviously these invoices or statements are very complex, and a lot of time the finance team, just have to pay it, because there's not a lot of transparency. Do you think, um, because CFOs that we work with are always trying to give what I call superpowers to his or her finance team, right? To help complement them, to help save them time. So, is this program? Can you talk about maybe the potential time savings as well for the finance team, and obviously more than just time savings. Is it because they don't have the expertise, or is it more time related, or is it expertise related as far as not being able to identify these savings in these statements? I'm wondering.
It could be one or both. We've worked with finance teams that are very educated on this topic, and those are the ones that say, like, we just don't want to dedicate our time to this. We want our analysts, doing other things, right? So I kind of place Verisave as almost an additional employee in the room there, that just completely eliminates uh, the tasks that are affiliated with reconciling these accounts. And from there, like I said, it's like having an employee that you don't have to pay. At that point, we're just again capturing a portion of those savings. So there's always just a variety of people that we're working with. We're not out to replace anyone. I think it's just to give those finance teams time spent elsewhere, and that's the real value. Is, I can have my treasurers and my analysts working on other opportunities versus this is just a sliver of their day. This is really just a sliver of their P&L. So to have one person dedicated to it, it would be a full-time job, and really not an area where most CFOs want their team uh, being assigned or spent working on this.
Yeah, it's no, it's such a no-brainer. And that's why we're excited to have you guys be part of the savings program and look forward to continue expanding, business with you guys. So one last question we always ask our guests is, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot in your career. If you have to give one business and or personal advice that you're pretty passionate about, what advice would that be?
Oh wow, that's a deep question. Don't do anything for money.
Mm.
Don't do it for the money.
Yeah,
don't
easier
don't
said than
don't
done,
do
I
it for.
guess. But yeah.
I know. Don't chase the green paper. Chase your passions. And take care of people, and then the rest will follow.
I
Money will.
100% agree. Yeah, if you provide value, just like what we're doing, if you provide value and help people solve problem and treat people well, I think good things follow from that. So, no, thank you so much for the conversation, the education, and the partnership, and appreciate you being on.
Victor, it is always a pleasure. We are very grateful for this partnership, and thank you for the opportunity to connect here on your show today.
That was an amazing episode of the Spend Advantage podcast, where we show you how we can help you 10x your bottom line savings and top line growth for your business. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. And if you want to get the best deals from the guest today, make sure to send us a message at sales@verisource.com.